by What? Hello everybody, my name is Kelsey and we're about to get very, very nerdy with my surprising reads of 2019. So I have gone through all of the books that I read so far this year, and I have picked out about 8 books that I found really surprising in the good way. The last thing that I uploaded would have been my disappointing reads, and there was about 7 of those too. I had a pretty good year this year. A lot of the books that I read were 4-star. I felt like I was giving a lot of 4 stars, but these are the books that I gave 5 stars to, and I just devoured and loved every second of it. So I'm going to take you through each of these books. I will leave a link down below to my wrap-up playlist so you can go through and see which ones when I have like real thoughts about them, because these are just kind of like little itty-bitty thoughts about them. So yeah, let's just get into the books that I was really surprised with this year. I'm looking at these books and I'm noticing that I think all but like one were part of a readathon. So I had some good readathons this year. So the very first book that I have on this list is Eligible by Curtis Sittenfeld. This is a modernized retelling of Pride and Prejudice. And I'm not surprised that I liked it because I do really enjoy Pride and Prejudice retellings. I'm surprised by how much I liked this. I think I read this in like 2 days. This was part of my Owls readathon that I did in April, and I just loved this book so much. I think it was a really good modernization of the stuff that was going on. There's some LGBTQ plus representation in this book, and that is a lot of why Mrs. Bennet doesn't like some people, and there's a lot of stuff that goes along with that. So like that, it's a little iffy in there, so like be wary, because like the way she goes about it is not great. But I think even our main character has some prejudice not against people from that community, but like has some thoughts and then realizes that she's having thoughts and is like, well, I need to change that opinion. So I just found that really, really interesting, and this has been my favorite Darcy so far. He is the most believable. I really enjoyed the love story here. I felt like the hate to love was really, really good in this book. I just freaking loved this book. The next book is one that I also read for the Owls in April, and that is My Lady Jane by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows. Now, I didn't really know what to expect from this book. I picked this up totally randomly in Barnes & Noble. When I first started my channel, I did a blindfolded book buy with Lauren, and while I was there, I saw this book and I was like, and that needs to be in my collection, and now please. So I really, really enjoyed this book. This follows Miss Lady Jane Grey, who is queen for like 9 days before she gets beheaded, and they decide that, you know what, we don't like that ending, so we're gonna write our own, and it's very fantastical, and it is so good. Like I said, I didn't know what to expect from it. It seemed like it was going to be funny. It was freaking hilarious. It was one of the funniest books. It's one of the funniest books that I've read this year for sure, but it might be one of the funniest books that I've read ever. This author trio has also written another book in this series, My Plain Jane, which is based on Jane Eyre, which I've read and didn't love it as much as this one, but it was very good. And they have a third one coming out sometime next year called My Calamity Jane. So their goal was to come together and write a comedy, and my goodness, they did that. It was so good. It was a lot of breaking the fourth wall, a lot of the narrator kind of giving their opinion on what was going on, which I found hilarious. So like, if you like fantasy, if you like historical fiction, if you like humor and laughing at awesome things, such a good book. The next book I don't actually have a copy for, but I would honestly love to get one, and that is Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia. But this I read in May when Lauren and I picked TBRs for each other. I picked 5 books for her, and she picked 5 books for me. And they were all books that she absolutely loved. So I read this one, and it's been talked about for like a very long time. and I hadn't really read a lot with any kind of mental health, and there is a little bit in this. Our main character suffers from a lot of anxiety, and I'd never read anything like that before, so anything with mental health I'm a little iffy on, just because it is unfamiliar to me. I'm better now, I think, because I have at least been introduced to a little bit, and I do need to read a lot more, and I totally realize that. But when I read this book, I was really iffy. I thought I was going to like it. I didn't think I would go into any of these books not liking. I was wary on a couple of them that I thought that I would come out feeling kind of middle of the road, but this one by far was my favorite out of all of the books that she gave me. I loved this book so much. It's really fun. I liked the mixed media format of it because if you don't know about this book, Eliza is an online comic artist and author, but because she does do a lot of art in this book, there are bits and pieces from her comic included, which I think is great. Y'all know I love mixed media books, but it was really cool, and I loved seeing that part of it. Another thing that I really liked was the writing style was phenomenal, because when Eliza was anxious, the reader was anxious. So when a lot of stuff was going on and she felt uncomfortable about some stuff, you felt it with her, which was amazing. I love when an author can make you feel what the person is feeling, especially when you, as a reader, have never been in the same situation that the person you're reading about has been in, whether that is a situational thing or a mental health thing or whatever. And then you can actually feel what the character's feeling. Is just amazing writing. I loved it so much, and I want this book so badly, but it was good. So thank you, Lauren, for picking this for me, because you done good. The next book is one of the ones that I read for my newts in August, and that was Two Dark Reigns by Kendara Blake. This is the third in the Three Dark Crowns series. I really wanted to read this book. I really wanted to go back into this world, and I loved this one a lot. This one was my favorite in the series, and I think I liked it so much because there's this kind of I'm calling it a mythology kind of aspect of it, but it's myth and legends and telling of how the queens came to be and talking about old queens and that kind of stuff. So getting a historical aspect to this world was awesome. I loved that so much, and that is a huge part of the third book. So kudos. I think another reason why I might have liked this one the most is that in this series there has to do a lot with dark magic and blood magic. And so one of our characters in order to do all of this magic, has to get blood and cut themselves and all of that stuff. And I am not a fan of blood. I hate blood. I probably talked about this before on this channel, but I cannot stand blood. No, I will pass out. I have passed out in high school before because the movie we were watching had some of that. It's a problem. So that's a big thing in this series, and there wasn't as much in this book. There was near the end, but at least in the beginning, there wasn't that much. So I think that helped me a lot. But I really liked this book. When the first chapter can get you hooked, and the first chapter is 4 pages long, you know it's going to be a good ride. So I love this. My favorite in the series. It was good. The next book is actually a graphic novel that I've also read for the newts, and that is Bloom. This graphic novel is just so much fun. I loved it. It was one of the I'd seen in Barnes & Noble a few times, and I felt that's cool, and then I moved on with my life. I didn't think much of it, and then I heard the author talking at some event that Lauren and I went to, and I was really interested in it, and I almost bought the book, but I wasn't sure, so I was I'll just get it from the library, whatever. And Lauren actually got me this copy, so I was really intrigued. I thought that I would like this going in. I thought it would be a cute story, but I didn't really know what to expect from it because I hadn't read anything by the author or seen anything by the illustrator before, so I wasn't quite sure what to get from it. This was pure and wholesome and lovely, and I loved it. This reminds me a lot of Heartstoppers, so I think if you liked Heartstoppers, then you would definitely enjoy this. This takes place in the middle of the summer between our two main characters in a bakery, and my favorite parts were the montage scenes. So they did that something very, very similar in this book. and it would be like a montage page. They're so cool. And I just found the art style beautiful. I'm still curious as to why they chose to do it all in a blue color, because it's like not a sad story, so like I'm curious by that. But I loved it. I needed to put this on this list because I didn't realize that I would love it that much. But I did. The next one, y'all, was also from the Newts, and I vlogged those. I will try to find the one where I talk about this the most in, because there's no way I'm going to be able to say all of my thoughts here. And that is The King's Curse by Philippa Gregory. This is the, seventh in her kind of Plantagenet Tudor series. There's not really, she has a suggested way to read them, so it like is chronological, but you can read one without reading the other and it's totally fine. But this one follows a woman named Margaret who is in the court of King Henry VIII and kind of like was there for him when he was growing up and is really, really good friends with his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, and basically is there while she is there. So it takes place a lot during the time that she is there, and they were married for a very, very long time before he started, divorcing and killing everything. But I think she sees 4 or 5 of his wives. I don't remember. I know she doesn't see the last one, and I'm trying to remember if she sees the 5th one. I think she does for like a split second. But this follows her life, and it's like political intrigue. It's a lot of political intrigue. So if you like the Tudor England and historical fiction and political intrigue, like Philippa Gregory is the author for you. You have to like that time period though, because it's really complex and there's a lot that happens in this, really in any of her books. So like if you didn't like that period with like all of your heart, you probably wouldn't like her books. But yeah, so this was really good. Like there's just a lot about this book that like I had so many thoughts about this, and I don't want to like spend the next 20 million years talking about this. So like I said, I will link that below. But it was really good. I loved the characters. It was super complex. The story was amazing. I don't really know the actual events of Margaret's life, so like a lot of the stuff that happened and the ending was very interesting and surprising to me, but she's just great, and I love how it ended. Like, she stood up for herself, and it's about time, really, but it was very good. It was very, very good. The next book is one that you might be surprised is on this list, because I'm surprised it's on this list, and that is the 5th Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. So I was rereading the entire Harry Potter series this year, and when I got to this book, this was the one that I was dreading, because it's like a chunker, right? Is it the longest one? I think it might be, I thought the 4th one's the longest one. But this is the one that like is all of the teenage angst. Like that's what this book is about. And I've always like don't love this one. This is probably my least favorite story. It's definitely my least favorite movie. So like this is not one that I usually reread, so I was never super excited to get back to it. But it's not as angsty and sad and depressing as I thought it was. I mean, it has its moments because obviously, but like it's not as bad as I thought it was. And so I was really surprised by how much I actually liked this book. Like I was assuming that this would be the only Harry Potter book that I would end up giving 4 stars, but I ended up giving it 5 because it was so surprising and like it wasn't as sad as I thought it was going to be, and I freaking loved it. So my memory was wrong, is what I'm saying. It's surprising to me that this is on this list. It's surprising to me that this is a reread on this list, but here we are. It surprised me that I liked it so much. And the last one that's on this list is one that I've talked about so much recently, as because it was amazing. And that is The School for Good and Evil by Shomin Chinani. I know I said that wrong. This follows 2 friends in a fantasy world where one is going to be good and one is going to be evil, and every single year something comes to steal 2 people from the town they live in, one for good and one for evil. And Sophie is ready to go. She thinks that she's good. She wants to be good. She feels like she's prepping her entire life from that. And Agatha, her best friend, just wants to, like, be left alone and hang out with her friend. But the 2 of them end up going to the school. However, Sophie goes for the school for evil, and Agatha goes for the school for good. And there's just a lot of really amazing themes in this world with feminism and beauty and inner beauty and what is good and what is evil, and like we all have good and bad inside of us, and like it's only human, and it was just amazing, and I gave it 5 stars, and I want to read the second one right now. This one I read last month for the Believe-a-thon, and it was so good. Like, it took me a while to get into that, but I think it was only because I was reading like a million other things at the same time. Once I like actually gave this one time, it was amazing, and I loved the idea behind this, and I loved what happened, and there's so much action in this book, and it doesn't stop, and you need to read it if you haven't read it because it's amazing. Yeah. Well, those are the books that I found the most surprising that I read this year. What is a book that you liked and that you were really surprised that you enjoyed as much as you did? Let me know down below. If you liked this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe if you want to be part of this awesome growing family. And I will see you guys in my next video.